in 1743 on a small peninsula of volcanic rock reaching south into the Pacific. There was a fishing village that history never recorded. It had no name that anyone outside its 30 families would have known. No castle. No lord of particular distinction. No battle was ever fought here. No treaty signed. No emperor passed through on his way to somewhere more important. It was simply a place where people lived, where fishermen woke in the dark, long before the sun had made any promises, and pushed wooden boats into cold water by feel and memory, where women lit fires before dawn and cooked rice in iron pots and set out wooden bowls in the silence before the household stirred, where an old woman climbed a clifftop path every morning to sweep pine needles from the stones in front of a small shrine, because she had always done this, and because it mattered, even if no one was watching. This is the Japan that most of history overlooks. Not the Japan of shoguns and samurai. Not the Japan of war and ceremony and painted screens. The Japan that existed in the space between those things, in ordinary mornings. In salt air, in the weight of a net full of fish, in the sound of a temple bell carrying across a quiet bay. The Edo-period. The era this village belongs to is one of the longest stretches of peace in Japanese history. Over 200 years without significant war. The country turned deliberately inward. The borders closed to almost all outside contact. And in that closure, something remarkable happened. Japan became more precisely itself. Its art, its food, its architecture, its philosophy, all of it deepened and refined in the long quiet of a nation at peace with its own edges. This village is a small piece of that quiet. And today, this particular morning in the third year of the Kanpo period, is a day like every other day here. The tide is right. The mist is on the water. The boats are ready. In a few moments, the fishermen will go out. The shrine will be swept. The rice will cook. And you will be there for all of it. You will be there for all of it. Not as a visitor passing through, but as a presence inside the morning, feeling the cold air off the Pacific, hearing the oars, watching the light change on the water as the hours pass. This is not a history lesson. It is something quieter than that. It is simply a morning. And it is about to begin. But first, welcome to Softer Worlds, a place where history slows down, where the noise of the present fades, and where we take you somewhere quieter, somewhere older, somewhere you've never been, but that somehow feels like home. There is no light yet, only the sound of the sea. You are lying on a thin futon in a small room. The walls are paper. The floor is tatami, woven rush grass, cool and slightly damp in the night air coming off the water. The ceiling is low. The room is almost completely dark, except for a faint gray suggestion at the edge of the shoji screen that faces the sea. Not light yet. The idea of light, the rumor of it. The waves are close, closer than you expected when you arrived last evening. This village sits at the very edge of the land. The Aizu Peninsula, a long arm of volcanic rock reaching south into the Pacific. Its western shore looking out across Suruga Bay. On a clear day, and today will be clear, you can already feel it in the quality of the cold. You can see Mount Fuji from the clifftops, 40 kilometers away across the water, rising white and perfect above the horizon, but that is for later. Right now there is only the dark and the sound of water and the smell of the sea, which is a clean salt smell here. Cold and mineral. Nothing like the warm river smell of the cities to the north. This is ocean air. It comes off water that has been traveling for weeks, maybe months, from somewhere out beyond the edge of the world. You breathe it in. Somewhere in the village, a rooster makes a single sound and stops. Then silence again, except for the waves. The gray at the edge of the shoji screen grows. Almost imperceptibly, slightly less gray. The year is 1730. The era is Kenpo. The third year of the Kenpo period, the long middle of the Edo age, when Japan has been at peace for over 100 years. The country is closed to most of the outside world. A deliberate choice, made a century ago and still in force. No foreign ships except a small Dutch contingent far to the south in Nagasaki, no missionaries, no outside wars. A country turned inward, tending to itself. Growing quieter and deeper and more precisely itself with every passing decade. This village is not important. It has no castle, no lord of particular distinction. Perhaps 200 people who fish and farm a little on the steep hillside terraces and trade their catch with the merchants who come down from Shimoda. It is not a place that history will remember, but it is alive. Completely, quietly alive. And it is about to begin its day. The men were awake before the rooster. They are always awake before the rooster. Long before it, the rooster is for the farmers. The fishermen have their own clock, older than roosters, older than clocks, the tide. You step outside. The cold takes your breath for a moment. Not winter cold, but the particular cold of early spring on a Pacific coast. Clean and sharp and immediate. The kind of cold that makes the world suddenly very specific. You are here. This is now. The cold will not let you be vague about it. The village is a cluster of low buildings following the curve of the bay. Their thatched roofs dark against a sky that is just beginning to separate itself from the sea. The beach is dark, volcanic sand. Not the white sand of warm places, but something darker, almost black, that absorbs the last of the starlight rather than reflecting it. The fishermen are at the boats. There are 6 vessels pulled up on the sand. Small wooden craft, low-sided and practical, built for this coast, for these conditions. The men move around them in the half-dark with the ease of absolute familiarity. They have done this every morning of their working lives. Their fathers did it. Their grandfathers did it on this same stretch of sand. The boats are almost identical to the boats their great-grandfathers used. Why would you change what works? A man named Kenji. Broad across the shoulders, perhaps 50, his hands the size of small shovels from decades of net hauling, pushes his boat to the water's edge. 2 younger men help without being asked, no words. They have done this together enough times that words would be redundant, even intrusive. The boats go into the water one by one. Each one receives the sea with a small sound. A sliding, a lifting. A moment of adjustment as the hull finds its element. The men climb in. They take up their oars, they row. You watch them go, 6 boats moving out across the dark water in a loose formation, their silhouettes growing smaller against the gray horizon that is now, definitely, beginning to lighten. They do not speak. The oars make a sound, a low, rhythmic creak and splash that carries clearly across the cold air. It grows quieter as they move further out, then quieter still. Then they are just shapes on the water. Then the water takes them and you cannot tell them from the shadows. But you know they are there. There is a path that goes up from the village. It is narrow and steep and old, cut into the volcanic rock and worn smooth by centuries of feet. Pine trees grow on either side, their roots gripping the cliff face, their trunks twisted by the coastal wind into shapes that seem deliberate, sculptural, as though someone with tremendous patience had been shaping them for a very long time. You climb. The air gets colder as you go higher, and the sound of the village fades and the sound of the sea increases. Not louder exactly, but more present, more three-dimensional. Coming from below and around rather than just in front of you. At the top of the path, on a flat shelf of rock overlooking the bay, there is a small shrine. It is not grand. A wooden torii gate, once red, now faded to a deep burned orange, the paint cracking and lifting at the edges in a way that feels not neglected but simply honest. This is what wood does in salt air over time. Behind it, a small wooden structure no larger than a garden shed. Its roof mossy, and its walls dark with decades of sea spray. A stone lantern beside it, its flame extinguished, but the wick still faintly warm from the night before. And in front of the shrine, an elderly woman. She is perhaps 70, small and precise in her movements. She wears a dark indigo jacket over gray trousers, both garments the practical clothing of a working life rather than anything ceremonial. Her white hair is pulled back simply. She moves without hurry but also without waste. Each gesture exactly what it needs to be and nothing more. She's cleaning. She sweeps the stone path in front of the shrine with a short broom made of bundled twigs, working in careful arcs. The same arc she has made every morning for, you sense, a very long time. She sweeps fallen pine needles into a small pile at the edge of the path, from which the wind will take them eventually, which is fine. The point is not the pile. The point is the sweeping, the daily renewal of the space, the signal to whatever lives in this place that the people below still attend to it, still come, still care. When the sweeping is done, she sets a small cup of water before the shrine door. Then a few grains of rice on a flat stone. Then she claps twice, sharp and clean in the cold air, and bows, and is still for a moment. You cannot see her face from where you stand. You do not need to. You can feel what the stillness is. Not prayer exactly, not in any way you have a word for. Something quieter than prayer. Something that does not ask for anything. An acknowledgement, a greeting. A small daily confirmation that the world exists and that she is in it and that this is enough. She straightens. She takes up her broom. She begins to descend the path, passing you without apparent surprise. Her eyes on the steps, her movements easy and certain on the uneven stone. She has made this descent 1,000 times. The path knows her feet. Behind her, the shrine sits in the early light, which is now coming in low from the east across the water. Long, flat, golden light that catches the torii gate and turns it briefly back to the red it once was. Then a cloud passes, and it is simply wood again. Time you come back down from the cliff, the village is beginning. Not loudly. This is not the explosive waking of a market city, nothing like the Baghdad quayside or the Paris morning streets. This is quieter, more interior. The sounds come from within buildings rather than between them. The clatter of iron pots, the hiss of water being heated, a child's voice asking something, and a parent's voice answering, low and unhurried. Smoke is rising from several chimneys. Not the chimneys of wealthy houses, but the simple roof vents of ordinary homes. The smoke of morning fires being coaxed from last night's embers, the smell of wood smoke, mixes with the salt air in a way that is deeply familiar to everyone who lives here and completely specific to this place. A cat emerges from somewhere. Gray, deliberate, moving along the base of a stone wall with the particular purposefulness of a cat that has an appointment somewhere. It does not look at you. It does not look at anything. It has a destination. A young woman opens the sliding door of a house and empties a wooden bucket of water into the drainage channel that runs along the edge of the lane. She bows slightly toward the household shrine, visible just inside the door before she closes it. The gesture is so automatic, she is barely aware of making it. The lane between the houses is packed earth, smoothed by years of feet and rain. It is clean, swept, as the shrine path was swept, as everything here is swept, as though order is not something imposed on the world, but something maintained in it by daily attention. A child appears in a doorway, still half asleep, her hair loose around her face. She looks at the morning with the frank, undefended expression of someone who has not yet learned to compose their face for the outside world. She stands there for a moment, just existing in the cold air. Then she is called from inside and she disappears back into the warmth. The fishing boats are invisible from here, too far out on the water, hidden by the morning mist that has settled in a low band across the bay. But you know they are there, working, patient. Dies Ino-Bastrasser, Yuang context patient. The village does not wait for them. The day has its own business. The largest house near the center of the village. Largest meaning 3 rooms instead of 2. A woman named Hana is making breakfast. She is perhaps 45. The wife of the village's most experienced fisherman. A woman who has run this household for 20 years with an efficiency and warmth that the house seems to have absorbed into its walls. The rooms are small, but not cramped. Everything has a place. The place of everything is known without thinking. She kneels at the komedo, the clay cooking stove, built into a low platform near the back wall, its fire already going, fed by dry pine wood that spits and catches with a cheerful energy. The fire is the first thing she attends to every morning before anything else, before she is fully awake herself. The fire must not go out. It is warmth and food in the beating heart of the house. On the fire, she has a pot of rice. She does not watch it. She knows by the sound and the smell how it is doing. She moves around the small kitchen space with the economy of someone who has never had more room than she needed, and has never needed more room than she has. She cuts pickled daikon, white radish, pickled last autumn, pale yellow now and intensely sour. She cuts miso from a block and dissolves it into a second pot of water. She sets out wooden bowls on a low tray. She places chopsticks and pears, parallel, exact. This is the morning meal of this household. This village, this country in this era, rice, miso soup, pickled vegetables. Perhaps a piece of dried fish if yesterday's catch was good. Simple, complete, designed over centuries to nourish people who work hard in cold air. The smell fills the house. rice steam and miso and the faint sweetness of the wood fire. It is one of the most complete smells you have encountered on this journey, because it is a smell that means safety, that means warmth after cold, that means the household is intact and the morning has arrived and there is food. Her daughter appears in the doorway, the same child you saw in the lane, her hair now quickly braided, and takes the water bucket to the well without being asked. She has done this every morning. She will do it tomorrow. It is simply what the morning requires. Hana lifts the lid of the rice pot, checks it, replaces it. She is satisfied. The mist is still on the bay when the sun comes fully over the eastern mountains. It does not burn off immediately. The morning is cold enough that the mist holds a low white layer lying on the water's surface, the fishing boats invisible within it. The cliff tops in the village are above it in clear, cold sunlight. But the bay itself is white and still and closed. You sit on a flat stone above the beach and watch it. This is one of the great gifts of this coast. The mist. It transforms the familiar into the mysterious. The bay you could see clearly yesterday is this morning a different place entirely. A white space in which anything might be happening. The boats are in there somewhere. The men are working. But from here, there is only whiteness and the occasional sound. A voice carrying across the water. The creak of an oar, the slap of a wave against a hull. That tells you the world is continuing inside the mist even when you cannot see it. Japan has always understood mist. It appears everywhere in the art. In the woodblock prints, in the ink paintings, in the poetry. It is not just weather. It is a visual and philosophical idea. The thing that cannot be fully seen. The world partially revealed and partially withheld. The understanding that what is hidden is as real as what is visible. Perhaps more real. Because it can be anything. A heron lands on a rock at the edge of the water. It folds its wings with the deliberate precision of a craftsman putting away tools. It stands. It watches the water. You watch the heron, watch the water. The mist moves. A small eddy. A slow rotation. A thinning at one point that shows for just a moment the shape of a boat's bow. A man's silhouette, an arm extended over the side. And then the mist closes again, and it is white. The sun is higher now. The mist is beginning, almost imperceptibly, to thin at its edges. The bay is giving itself back to the morning. By mid-morning, the boats are returning. You see them first as shadows in the thinning mist, then as shapes, then as themselves. The 6 wooden vessels moving together toward the shore. their oars working in the same patient rhythm they had when they left in the dark. The men are tired. You can see it in the set of their shoulders. But the boats ride lower in the water than when they went out, which means the nets were full, which means the tiredness is a good tiredness. The village comes to the beach, not in a formal way, not announced, but people begin to appear. Women from their houses, children from wherever children spend their mornings. The old man who sits every day on the same wooden stool near the boat sheds and watches the sea with the concentrated attention of someone who is still, despite his years, reading something useful in it. They come to the beach because the boats are coming in, and this is what you do. The first boat reaches the shallows, and two men jump out and haul it up onto the dark sand. The catch is lifted out. Wooden boxes and woven baskets heavy with fish. Bonado, mostly. Skipjack tuna, the great fish of this coast. Silver blue and muscular, their scales catching the light. Some mackerel. A large sea bream that the lead fisherman holds up briefly before placing it with particular care in its own box. Kenji is the last one in. He steps out of his boat into the cold shallows without hesitation. The water is above his knee, ice cold, but he does not flinch and pushes the boat up onto the sand with his shoulder against the hull. He looks at the catch laid out on the beach. He says something. A short sentence. The other men laugh. Whatever he said, it was the right thing. The women have already begun sorting the fish. This to the merchant who comes on Wednesdays. This for today's market stall. This set aside for the household. Their hands move quickly through the catch. Their knowledge of the fish is complete as the men's knowledge of the water. Different expertise, same integration. The whole system working as it has always worked. A child picks up a small fish that has fallen from a basket and holds it up to examine it, eye to eye. Not a market exactly, more a place where things get sold on certain days. Today is one of those days. The fishmonger's wife, a compact, energetic woman in her 30s, whose name is Yuki, and who seems to operate at a slightly higher frequency than everyone else in the village, has set up her portion of the platform with the focused efficiency of someone who has done it quickly many times and sees no reason to take longer than necessary. Fish laid out in order of kind and size. Bonito to the left, mackerel center, bream to the right. Smaller fish in a separate row. Everything clean. Everything presented with a care that is not vanity but respect. For the fish, for the buyer, for the transaction itself. She calls out to the first customer before the customer has fully arrived, as though she saw them coming from a distance and had already begun the conversation in her head. The customer, an older woman from the inland side of the village, up since before dawn to tend her terraced rice fields, examines the bonito with the seriousness it deserves. Because bonito is not cheap, and she will not be buying it if it is not perfect. It is perfect. She buys it. This interaction takes perhaps 3 minutes. Involves a small wooden counter with which weights are measured. A brief negotiation conducted in a tone of mutual respect. And a final exchange in which copper coins and fish change hands and both parties seem genuinely satisfied. Not triumphant, not resigned. Satisfied, the specific equilibrium of a fair exchange. A traveling merchant has appeared at the edge of the platform. He has come from Shimoda, 2 hours' walk along the coastal road. He carries a wooden pack frame laden with goods. Fabric, needles, small tools, a few items of pottery. He will trade through the village before moving on to the next one. He is a familiar figure here. This merchant, known by name, his route, as predictable as the seasons. He sets down his pack frame and rolls his shoulders. And someone brings him a cup of tea without being asked. He wraps his hands around the cup. He sighs. The tea is hot. At the edge of the village, slightly uphill from the last house, there is a Buddhist temple. It is small. A single main hall, a bell tower, a graveyard behind the hall whose stone markers are covered in moss so old and thick it seems to have become part of the stone. But the temple belongs to the Judoshi school, Pure Land Buddhism, the most widely practiced form in Edo, Japan, particularly in farming and fishing communities. Simple in its theology, accessible. The promise of the Pure Land available to everyone who calls on the name of Amida Buddha with genuine heart. The priest is a man of perhaps 60, thin, with a quality of attention in his face that is not severity but concentration. The look of someone who has spent many years learning to pay attention and has not finished yet. He rings the bell at mid-morning as he rings it at dawn, at midday, at dusk. The bell is bronze, old, suspended in its wooden tower on a beam that has been replaced several times while the bell itself has hung there unchanged. It is struck with a horizontal wooden beam on a rope, pulled back, released. The beam swinging forward to meet the bell in a blow that is not a clang but a deep, sustained note that seems to come from inside the metal rather than outside it. The sound rolls out across the village, across the rooftops, down the lane, along the beach, out across the water where the boats are returning. It reaches the cliff where the shrine sits. It reaches the terraced fields on the hillside where 2 farmers are working without speaking. It reaches you. It does not demand anything of you. It does not summon or command. It simply marks the hour. It says, "This is where we are in the day. This much time has passed. This much remains." You stand and listen to the bell until the sound has completely dissolved into the air, and there is nothing left of it but the silence it leaves behind, which is a different silence than the one before it, fuller somehow, more aware of itself. But the priest has already turned away. He has other things to attend to in a room at the back of the temple. A young monk is painting. He is perhaps 22. He has been at the temple for 3 years. Sent here from a larger monastery in Kyoto to serve this community for a period before returning. He did not choose this village. It was chosen for him. He has made his peace with this, mostly. And on mornings like this one, when the light is what it is and the sea sounds the way it sounds, he understands why someone might choose it. He is painting with sumi ink on washi paper. Black ink, white paper, nothing else. The brush he holds is made of deer hair, tapered to a fine point, an instrument of precision that is also an instrument of feeling, the pressure of the hand, the speed of the stroke, the amount of ink loaded into the brush, all expressing something that the painter does not choose consciously but finds. He is painting a pine branch, or he is beginning to paint a pine branch. He has been sitting before the blank paper for what seems like a long time. This is not procrastination. This is part of the work. You do not begin until the image is already present somewhere inside you, and the painting is simply its emergence. If you begin before that, you are just making marks. He breathes. He loads the brush. He makes the first stroke, a single arc from upper left downward, the brush moving with a confidence that seems disproportionate to the months of uncertainty before it. But that's how it works. The stroke either has it or it doesn't, and you won't know until it's made. And once it's made, you can't take it back. And perhaps this is why the waiting is so long. He looks at the stroke. He makes another. The pine branch appears, not gradually, not tentatively, but all at once. As though it had been hiding in the paper, and the brush simply revealed it. 3 strokes for the main branch. 2 for the secondary. A cluster of needles, quick and certain, the brush barely touching the surface. He sets the brush down. He looks at what he has made. The morning light comes through the paper screen behind him and falls on the painting at an angle that makes the ink gleam slightly where it is thick and disappear almost entirely where it is thin. The branch looks like it is floating in white air, which it is, which everything is. Come up to the terraced fields above the village. The terraces are cut into the hillside at a gradient that seems impossible until you understand the engineering stone walls, carefully maintained, holding each level of earth in place. The whole system running water from a channel cut along the top of the hill downward through the terraces in a thin, controlled stream. Rice will be planted here in a few weeks, when the water temperature is right. For now, the fields are being prepared, turned, leveled, the soil worked until it is ready to receive the seedlings. 2 farmers are working. A husband and wife. Both somewhere in their 50s, both wearing the same practical indigo workwear as almost everyone else in this village. Both moving through their portion of the terrace with the methodical focus of people who have a known amount of work to do and have calculated correctly that they will do it. The view from here is extraordinary. You turn from the fields and look out, and the whole bay is below you, the dark sand beach. The cluster of rooftops, the wooden platform of the market with its handful of figures. The boats pulled up on the sand now that the morning's work is done. And beyond, the bay itself, free now of the mist, its surface a deep cold blue in the midday light, and at the far edge of the water, across 40 kilometers of Pacific air, Mount Fuji. You were told it would be visible today. You were not told it would be this. It rises from the horizon with a precision that seems almost artificial, perfectly conical. Perfectly white at its peak, its lower slopes fading to gray-blue in the distance. It looks like a painting of itself. It looks exactly like the woodblock prints you have seen of it, which makes sense because the prints are accurate. It really is that shape. That white, that impossibly symmetrical presence on the horizon. The farmers do not look at it. They see it every clear day. It has been the background of their lives since childhood, but you look at it for a long time. You understand something, standing here, that you did not have words for before. Why this mountain has always been sacred. Not because of anything theological or historical, though those things exist, but simply because of this, the fact that something can be that present, that specific, that undeniably itself. On the horizon of an ordinary day, while 2 farmers turn soil and a monk paints a pine branch and children chase each other along a beach and a woman makes miso soup. The mountain does not care about any of this. The mountain is simply there, which is exactly enough. The merchant has finished his rounds through the village. He sits now in the small front room of the tea house. Not a formal tea house, nothing ceremonial, simply the front room of a house where an elderly woman sells tea and sometimes a few simple things to eat to travelers on the coastal road. She has been doing this for 30 years. She has no sign outside. She does not need one. Everyone who uses this road knows she is here. She makes tea with the same quality of attention that the monk brings to his painting. not the elaborate choreography of the formal tea ceremony that belongs to a different world, to the cities, to the educated classes. This is simply tea, made carefully by someone who has made it 10,000 times and still considers each cup worth making well. The tea is green. The cups are ceramic, slightly irregular, warm in the hands. The merchant wraps his hands around his cup, and the tension in his shoulders, visible since he arrived, the tension of a man who walks many miles with weight on his back, releases slightly. You sit across from him, close enough to observe. He does not speak for a while. He drinks his tea and looks out the open door at the lane and the slice of sea visible at the end of it. A fishing cat picks its way along the top of the wall outside. A child's voice rises somewhere nearby and then subsides. The merchant is from Edo originally. You can tell from something in his accent, the few words he has spoken. He has been walking this route for 15 years. He knows every village between Shimoda and the hot spring towns in the mountains. He knows which houses have dogs, which innkeepers water their sake, which stretches of road flood in heavy rain. He knows things that are not written down anywhere and will not be, because they are the kind of knowledge that only exists in the bodies of people who move through the world rather than staying in one place. He finishes his tea. He holds out the cup, and the elderly woman refills it without a word. In the middle of the afternoon, the beach belongs to the children. The oats are in. The catch is sorted. The adults are doing the 100 things that the afternoon requires: mending nets, preparing the evening meal, attending to houses and fields and commerce. The children have been released into the afternoon with the easy confidence of children who know exactly what the afternoon is for. They are running. Not toward anything specific. Running the way children run when there is space and time and no particular destination, for the pleasure of speed, for the sensation of effort, for the shouting that running somehow makes necessary. Their feet kick up dark sand. Their voices carry along the beach in fragments of argument and laughter. A group of younger children, 5 or 6 years old, have found something at the water's edge, a jellyfish perhaps, or an interesting stone, or a piece of driftwood that imagination has transformed into something else entirely. They crouch around it in a tight circle, their heads almost touching, conducting the serious investigation that children conduct into anything that captures their attention. An older boy, perhaps 12, at the age when childhood is becoming something more complicated, sits slightly apart on a flat rock, watching the younger ones with an expression that cannot quite decide whether it belongs to childhood or adulthood. He picks up a flat stone and skips it across the surface of a calm pool left by the retreating tide. It skips 4 times. He watches it sink. He picks up another stone. The sea is calmer in the afternoon than the morning. The wind has dropped. The water near the shore is almost still, reflecting a pale winter blue sky. Further out, the surface has a texture like hammered metal, flat and slightly shimmering. A wave comes in, larger than the ones before it, and the children scatter from the water's edge with screams that are entirely performance. They are not afraid. They knew it was coming, but the screaming is part of the game. The wave retreats. They move back to the edge. They wait for the next one. This game has no end point. It could go on until dark. It probably will. Kenji is mending a net. He sits outside his house in the late afternoon light with the net spread across his knees and a wooden shuttle in his hand, working through a section that was damaged this morning, caught on something underwater. A rock, probably, torn in a way that is annoying but fixable. Everything on this coast is fixable. That is the philosophy of the coast. He works with the same unhurried thoroughness he brings to everything. The shuttle moves in and out, in and out, in and out. The knots are tight and even. His hands do not hurry. His youngest son, 4 years old, round-faced, in a small padded jacket against the cold, sits beside him playing with a piece of rope that he is very seriously attempting to tie into something. He does not know how to tie anything yet. This does not discourage him. He works at the rope with complete commitment, trying different configurations, looking up occasionally at his father's hands to see what hands are capable of, going back to his own work. This is how it begins. This is how it has always begun. The child watching the father's hands. The rope that won't cooperate. The patience required for both. Kenji's wife leans out from the house and says something. He responds without looking up from the net. She responds. He responds. The conversation is brief and comfortable, and you cannot follow it, but you do not need to. It has the particular texture of people who have been talking to each other for so long that the words are almost beside the point. It is the talking that matters, the continued fact of it. The light is going gold. The net is almost mended. The child has succeeded in tying something. It is not quite a knot, but it has a definite structure, a definite intention. He holds it up to show his father. Kenji looks at it. He nods seriously. The boy is satisfied. Come back to the water. The sun is an hour above the western horizon now, and the bay has changed for the third time today. The cold blue of midday has become something warmer. Not the blazing copper of a tropical sunset, but a cooler, quieter gold. The gold of late light at this latitude in early spring, which is a restrained and beautiful color. Pale gold fading to gray at the edges, the water picking it up and holding it with a slight shimmer. And that Fuji across the bay has turned pink. You did not expect this. No one tells you about this. The prints show it, but you thought that was artistic license. It is not artistic license. In the last hour of daylight, when the sun is at the right angle, the snow on Fuji catches a light that is not quite any color. You have a name for the pink of something very cold hit by warm light, the pink of altitude and snow and distance. It holds the color for perhaps 20 minutes. You stand on the beach and watch it. The village behind you is in its evening mode. The sounds of cooking, of children being called in, of the temple bell that just rang and is still resonating somewhere at the edge of perception. The boats are long since in, and the beach is empty except for you and the heron, who is back at his rock, watching the water with the same expression as this morning, which is to say no expression at all. A woman walks past you to the edge of the water. She stands there for a moment looking at the mountain. She is young, perhaps 20, perhaps less. She has a baby tied to her back, the baby sleeping, its face tucked into her neck. She looks at the mountain, and then she looks down at the water, and then she looks back at the mountain, and you can see her thinking something, but you cannot tell what it is. And then she turns and walks back up the beach toward the village. The mountain continues to be pink for a few more minutes. Then the color shifts. The sun drops a fraction more. The pink becomes something closer to gray. Then the gray becomes the gray of the mountain itself, and Fuji recedes from its brief, extraordinary self back into being simply a very large presence on the horizon. The heron lifts off from his rock without warning, without apparent reason, and flies low across the water until the mist takes him. The stars are different here from the city. You knew this intellectually. Now you know it in your body, standing on the beach in the full dark, the village quiet behind you, the sea in front of you making its ancient sound. The stars are everywhere. Not scattered but dense, layered, the Milky Way visible as a distinct structure across the sky, a road, the old word for it, the celestial road, the river of heaven. The Managua. The Japanese have always known it as a river, which makes sense on this coast, where rivers and water and the movement of things from one place to another is the deep grammar of daily life. The boats are pulled up on the dark sand. The nets are mended and folded. The catch has been sold and smoked and stored. Tomorrow the boats will go out again. Mist will come in. The heron will stand on his rock. The elderly woman will climb the path to the shrine with her broom. The bell will ring. The rice will cook. The children will run on the beach until someone calls them in. And Mount Fuji will be there on the horizon, pink for 20 minutes in the late afternoon light, as it was yesterday, as it will be tomorrow, as it has been for as long as there have been people on this coast to watch it and not quite find the words. You sit down on the cold sand. The waves come in at their own pace, one after another, each one different from the last in some small way. All of them the same in every way that matters. They have been doing this for longer than Japan has existed. They will do it long after. The sea does not know about Edo periods or fishing villages or woodblock prints or traveling merchants or monks who paint pine branches in the cold back rooms of small temples. The sea just comes in and goes out and comes in again, which is the oldest rhythm there is, which is the rhythm everything else measures itself against. You breathe with it. In, out, in. You are on a beach on the Izu Peninsula in 1743, and the stars are overhead, and the mountain is invisible in the dark. But you know it is there, and the village is sleeping, and the fisherman will wake before the light, and you are as here as you have ever been anywhere. This is what it feels like. This is what it has always felt like. To be somewhere completely. To let the place be what it is. To breathe in and breathe out and not ask it to be anything other than exactly this. The wave comes in. The wave goes out. Sleep now. Let the sea carry you. You are exactly where you need to be. Good night.